And now, please welcome Executive Vice President of Marketing and Digital for Air Canada and Aeroplan President, Mark Nasr, in conversation with founder and editor of the Airline Observer, Brian Summers.
Hi, Mark. Good to see you again. All right. So I've got some hard-hitting questions here. You know, I had a complaint after I flew you guys about 1.5 years ago. I had a morning flight, and I had this omelet, and it wasn't very good. And you had told me at that point that the omelet, under Ben Smith's direction, had not changed in 20 years. But you, sir, you have changed the omelet. And you've changed a lot of things at Air Canada. So first, tell me about the omelet. What have you done? And then tell me more about the passenger experience.
For sure. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thank you. Food service is an important part of our experience. And maybe just to zoom out for a second, one thing I found consistently in my career, and this was very true at Continental, where we were the last to have complimentary economy food services. If you ask customers what their priority is, it won't rank particularly high, maybe mid-rankings in terms of product offering. But when you provide complimentary food service, it has a halo on the brand, and it shows up in customer satisfaction. And when you take it away, particularly for flights that are on time where you're delivering the core product, you see it very clearly. So at Air Canada, we end up spending a good amount of time thinking about food service and our investment. We're the only carrier in the Western world, as far as I'm aware at least, that offers a hot breakfast in business class on every single flight, even a 45-minute flight between Toronto and Ottawa. And if you think about it, a cold Canadian winter, a 6 a.m. flight, you're getting up at 4 a.m., you're rushing to the airport, it's not so inviting outside. Customers love settling into a nice cup of coffee or tea and a warm breakfast, and it makes a big difference. In terms of the omelet, we've changed it over time, and every time we change it, we hear very clear feedback from our customers, and most importantly from our flight attendants, saying customers would prefer what they had before.
They are wrong. It was too heavy.
So to that end, we took a challenge a little differently. We said, instead of trying to come up with a completely different entree, what if we could improve upon the omelet? And funnily enough, the challenge wasn't the omelet itself. Customers love the egg. The challenge was around the omelet. So without going too much details, we removed the cottage cheese, the warm cottage cheese. We upgraded the sausage to a chicken Parmesan sausage that we pan-fried, and we changed the potatoes as well. But the core omelet, the egg omelet, the 3-egg omelet is still the same. And customers love it even more now.
And you had told me, I think you had done some A/B testing about sausages and things like that. Is that how detailed this is?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the themes of product that I'm most excited about is, as we're integrating our digital channels and our product experience closer and closer together, we can actually use the principles of digital optimization on the physical product. So for example, the way in which we design our lobbies at the airport, we're able to take data now and judge our signage, the layout of the stanchions, what leads to lower wait times, customers being in the right place. As it relates to the onboard food and beverage menu, we launched pre-order meal. And with pre-order meal, we're actually able to A/B test the order that the entrees appear, the descriptions, other elements, for example, when people make their order prior to their flight. And with that, we can optimize the menu design as well as the loading parameters, the operations of the catering service itself.
Thank you. You may think that I'm going too deep on this, but Mark, you told me backstage that when you were you were a freshman at Cornell in the hotel management school, and the professor asked if anybody was particularly passionate about something. And remember, this is a hotel school, not an airline school. What did you tell the class?
I said airline food, and I got a lot of laughs. Yeah.
All right, so now this is your passion. It's also what you do for a living. It's also one of the many things that you do at Air Canada. You briefly touched on NPS scores. It's pretty well known in this industry, as you said, that those track on-time performance. But beyond that, what touch points do customers care about? What moves NPS up and down? It's food. What else?
Yeah, so whenever we look at NPS, we start by separating it between journeys that were disrupted and journeys where we delivered on-time, clean, safe, reliable service, right? And then we focus on different elements for each one of them. So for disruption, key questions, for example, are how did we handle the disruption? How quickly did we get the customer on the way? And the follow-up question we ask there is to the customer, do you feel taken care of? And that's the key thing we focus on that side, of course, and continuous improvement to the design of our schedule and how we're running the operation itself so that we are more on time, et cetera. For customers who have an on-time journey, so the majority of our customers, what's really interesting is Wi-Fi, food and beverage, and the nature of the service that we're providing, particularly from the flight attendants. Those are the key differentiators in it. I'll tell you this, we've been on a drive for the last 5-6 years to improve our economy product. Where we've made food and beverage investments in economy, we've actually seen the biggest increase. Year over year, for example, we put in place complimentary premium snacks in North America, complimentary drinks in North America to match what we were doing internationally. We saw a 20-point increase year over year in non-disrupted NPS for economy customers.
Just curious, Mark, you don't have any competitors out there in the Canadian market that also give free food and drinks to their customers, right? Air Canada did this exactly on its own accord and has nothing to do with competition?
Yeah, I learned today about glassware as well. So, look, competition makes us better. And I wouldn't for a second minimize the positive impact that competition could have in a marketplace. It's something that people sometimes throw out as a trite, nice one-liner, that they like competition, but we love it. I can tell you without a doubt that I'm able to drive my team harder when we have fierce competitors. So I respect our competitors. I don't think we gain anything by throwing shade on them. I think we're very proud of our brand, we're proud of our product experience, our service levels. And if you look at the overall value proposition, yes, there's onboard food and beverage, but there's many other components to it. Our technology is leading in market. Our loyalty program is leading in market. Our network is leading in market. Our alliances are leading in the entire world. And we look at that holistically, and we're not too proud of other people's ideas. We're also not too we try to think of ourselves as a little creative, and sometimes we have a good idea ourselves.
Okay. You talk about leading in the world. You are, and I say this in the best way, right? Because if you know who I am, you know that calling somebody eccentric is the ultimate compliment. And you, sir, you are a little bit eccentric. And there's a problem in the airline industry, and I think some of you may do this as well, where people only fly their own airline. And because they only fly their own airline, for some reason, they think their own airline is the best when it's not. And I'm texting you sometimes, and you're like, well, I'm in Southeast Asia. I had to fly this random airline, and then I'm flying that random airline. And you travel all over the world, sometimes for no other reason to see what the competition is doing. Right? How important is that to you as you do your planning at Air Canada?
Extraordinarily important, and that's for me. Look, everybody has their own way of understanding the industry in which they work, the competitive environment in which they compete, et cetera. You said it earlier, I come from a hospitality background, and I'll tell you, in the restaurant world and in the hotel world, say you're a hotel general manager or you're a chef at a restaurant, you will spend a lot of time experiencing the products of your competitors, of your rivals, even of your friends. It's not uncommon for a hotel GM, if they're on vacation in another city, to actually pop into several hotels and just ask for a tour of the room. A good GM will always look at a hotel's bathroom and how clean it is, because that will tell you a lot about how the hotel is run. It's the same in the restaurant world. I've noticed in general that it's always difficult to use stereotypes or broad brush statements here, but in general, in the airline industry with airline executives, That's not quite as true, not quite as common. I fly 300,000 miles a year. I fly at least half of them on our competitors and partners. I fly in the tightest pitch economy seat all the way up to the most luxurious first class suite. And I find that having those experiences firsthand help me relate to what my team is telling me. And even more importantly, it allows me to talk to crews of other airlines and get their take on the industry and their own company, and actually probably learn even more from that than seeing the seat or the service or the lounge or whatever have you of another airline.
What is the best thing you've ever stolen from an airline, from a competitor?
Without
Not thing,
a doubt,
but idea that you brought to Air Canada.
Yeah, without a doubt. Druk Air, which is so there's 2 airlines in Bhutan. Druk Air is one of them. Amazing place, by the way, if you haven't been, can't recommend it enough. And Skift should write more about Bhutan. And salt and pepper shakers.
Have you brought them back already?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But you've brought them back probably for your own personal collection, right?
Oh, for sure.
Any ideas that you've seen in other
After
airline?
showing them off at the office for about a week, everyone asked me to leave their own office. So.
You are a geek in the best way. But is there anything that you've stolen from another airline, not for your personal collection, but for Air Canada? This airline has done a really good job doing X. Let's bring this to our North American global airline.
I take a lot of photos.
Yeah.
Probably not good to steal stuff.
Okay. All right. Just checking. All right. I want to ask you some questions, or at least one question about the Air Canada brand. You spent a lot of time working for Ben Smith, who was the president of passenger airlines at Air Canada for a long time and now runs Air France KLM. He did a great job building Air Canada into the brand that it is now. But I believe it was last year he got on an investor call and he said essentially, you know what, we pushed that brand in Canada as far as we could, but now I work for Air France, a real global champion in a real country.
Ouch.
And this Air France brand is way better than the Air Canada brand that I pushed as far as it could go. You're the keeper of the brand now. When you saw these comments, and I know you saw them, what'd you think?
Well, first of all, I had the pleasure of working for and learning from Ben for 4.5 years, and anybody who in this room or outside has shared in that pleasure knows what kind of a visionary leader he is, and he and Mike Rousseau and Kaylin Rovanescu really turned around Air Canada and saved the company. So we all have a lot to be proud and grateful for in that regard. Like usual, I would tell you, Ben's exactly right, if by that he means, look, Air Canada and Air France are both inextricably linked to their national identity. Canada is a relatively young country. Canada is a very multi-ethnic society. Canada is not a monolith. France is a much older country, and France has a much more singular, unified culture, right? At least comparing the two. And so the idea that the Air France brand can go deeper and the Air France brand can be more of a luxury, high-end brand than Air Canada, if that's Ben's point, and I think it was, I'd agree with him wholeheartedly. But that doesn't necessarily equate to success in the marketplace or commercial opportunity. For whatever Air Canada doesn't have in terms of the breadth that Air France might have or can build, Air Canada has in terms of depth. Air Canada is an accessible brand with a lot of broad appeal. Air Canada can play to Americans of all stripes. Air Canada can play to rural and urban Canadians. Air Canada can play to Aussies or people in Hong Kong or in France. Air Canada, on board our flights, we always speak 2 languages and often speak 3, 4, 5, or 6, similar to kind of Emirates in that regard. And I'd say there's a large segment of the population that have a high willingness and ability to pay that aren't necessarily looking for French luxury. I believe you wrote an article just last week about the nature of the service in La Première.
I think I called it snooty.
I might not choose that word to describe it, but you talked about the food, right? And not everyone wants like, a foam of moose pheasant, or sorry, not, a foam of whatever pheasant on top of a foie gras, and a crab rillette with smoked turkey, which is an actual Air France dish, crab rillette with smoked turkey. That as a gourmet, I can understand that. But the Air Canada brand is flexible enough, as silly as it might sound, to serve flatbread pizza in business class, to serve cheeseburgers in economy, to have baby back ribs with truffle mac and cheese. You see all roads point to food service. And that's acceptable and it makes sense, and it's very accessible to a very broad range of people. So yes, we might not have the depth, Canada might not have the history that France has, but our brand is more accessible, it's more welcoming, I think it's more universally appealing, and there's a ton of commercial opportunity in that.
Thank you. I just want to remind the audience, unless you want us to just keep geeking out about airline food, which we can do, we are taking questions, so send them over. There's an interesting question ahead of us, which I'm not going to read, but
should we talk about something non-food related?
Yeah, let's talk about something.
I spend about 5% of my time on food, but Brian really loves it. So.
I do. You also have digital at Air Canada, and I gently ribbed you before, and I said, the Air Canada app is great. You guys do everything 3 years after United. But I understand there is more functionality to the Air Canada app. You're taking it very seriously. Tell me what you guys are doing.
For sure. Well, look, first of all, I think United is the best airline app in the world, period, end of story. And we're very proud of our partnership with them, and our customers benefit from their leading digital and technology investments. We are in a build phase, and I believe that we have the second best app in the industry. Where do I think that we're particularly strong? What do our customers tell us? On the loyalty side, and there's no mistake about that, because the largest investment we made since we started insourcing our digital capabilities was the loyalty program. And so the loyalty program was rebuilt from the ground up along with the customer channels. And since then, we've moved heavily into commercial activities, so ancillaries, ticket sales, et cetera. And now we're moving into customer servicing and support, particularly day of operations, regular operation support, information sharing with customers, functionality like that. So the team has done a great job. We took the app from being a 1.9 in the App Store to being a 4.7. United, I think, is 4.8 or 4.9. So, we're certainly within view of our friends and partners there. And we're proud of the progress, but there's still more work to do for sure.
Okay. I wanted to ask you a little bit more about brand, because you're the keeper of the brand. And I really think that there's two airlines in North America that figured out that customers wanted a premium experience earlier than the others. And one was Delta and one was Air Canada. And when the Delta people talk on earnings calls right now, often they don't want to be known so much as an airline. They talk about being a trusted consumer brand. They might say, don't think of us as an airline. Think of us like a company like Starbucks that transcends coffee, or Nike, where you're not just buying the shoes. When you work on this Air Canada brand, do you have an understanding that this is inherently an airline, or you think people can think of your brand just like any other company?
So we're managing 3 main brands, and each of them have a different audience, and we have a different goal. For Air Canada, the goal is to really have that close identity with Canada. So it's very important domestically, because we're proud to be the national flag carrier, and Canada has a certain set of values, and we want Canadians, all Canadians, whether they fly us or not, to be proud of Air Canada. And we've come a long way on that journey, but there's still more work to do. Internationally, and this is really interesting, Canada is only behind Switzerland in terms of trust and respect of a national brand. And so that's another reason we want our global base of consumers, or would-be consumers, customers, to think of us as a manifestation of Canadian values, Canadian service delivery, Canadian reliability and dependability, and that's very important. So you've seen our brand strategy is built around espousing our values, which are very much aligned with those of our country, and behaving and treating our communities and our customers and employees in a commensurate manner. Then we have Aeroplan, and Aeroplan is the strongest loyalty program in the country. And it's actually, we think, one of the stronger travel loyalty programs in the world. And we want Aeroplan to be known for being innovative. We want it to be known for delivering great value. We want it to be known for being easy to do business with. And that's very much the brand that we've built there. Then we have Air Canada Vacations, and that's much more specific to a type of consumer in Canada, those that like to go on packaged vacations, but Canada's cold and dark during the winter. And what we want to be known there is for the highest and best experience in packaged vacations. And so, those are our strategies. Delta has that, but Delta's goal and my understanding of what, Glenn and team want to do with the Delta brand, it's a little bit different from what our goal is of what we want to do with the Air Canada brand.
Thank you. Mark, I got some bad news. We're looking at the audience questions here. It turns out some of them do want to know about food. All right? So let's ask a few of them. A question here, do you think food
is... So just a little story, because I can't help myself.
All right, a little story.
Continental Airlines, right? Clean, safe, reliable air transportation, pillows and blankets, meals at mealtime. That was the value proposition. Extremely clear, extremely effective at market. The airline operated with a RASM premium, all the way until consolidation and everything else that happened more broadly in the industry. The biggest single source of complaints was the food and economy, right? It was the number one source of complaints. When we cut food, customer satisfaction plummeted. That tells you something right there. But anyway, go ahead.
All right. Let's see. What regional airline around the world has impressed you most with its food?
Oh gosh, maybe a few examples come to mind. LATAM on their intercontinental flights does something very interesting. They put all their money behind a bigger entree and not having sides or salads or anything like that. And so it's a premium upgraded entree. It's a bigger entree. It's served in this kind of signature circular bowl. It's very interesting. Singapore Airlines now has these kinds of things that look like takeout containers. It's sustainable packaging, but the way it allows them to flow the meal service and eliminate clutter, because now you have often people want to use their personal electronic device and they want to eat their food at the same time, and so you got to kind of think about managing that personal space. And that's important. So those are two examples that come to mind.
Okay.
There's plenty.
You talked about, it wasn't necessarily the gist of your answer, but you did talk about sustainability in there. And so, we'll talk to a lot of travelers, especially in Europe, but elsewhere as well. They talk about how important sustainability is for them. And airplanes, as we know, they use a lot of jet fuel. There are things that can be done for that, but they don't move so quickly. So you have a lot of airlines that are actually going into the onboard product, right? If you use bamboo spoons instead of plastic spoons, it's sort of messaging to the customer that they care. Do you find your customers are very interested in sustainability? Do they care? And then what are you doing for them?
Our customers have an expectation of us around sustainability. And so I've heard some industry colleagues say, well, we've offered carbon offsets, we've offered direct SAF, sustainable aviation fuel purchasing to our customers, and the take-up rate is very low, so it shows they're not interested. And I think that that's the wrong conclusion. Yes, we see similar results, but I think that customers are expecting, quite candidly, of any industry and any brand that they're doing business with, that brand is behaving in an appropriate way and is being a responsible steward of whatever whatever context in which they're operating. Which for us, in this industry, which is responsible for just around 2% of global greenhouse gas emissions, is that factor. So our approach has been really focusing on three things. First, for the customer segment where there is a willingness and a desire to pay, which is our corporate customers and some of our freight forwarders, we've put a package together where they can direct purchase sustainable aviation fuel to cover their employees' travel or the cargo that's going on board our aircraft. And we've had significant positive uptake on that, including actually our single largest customer and several of our other top 10 customers. And that makes a big difference. It's at scale, and it's way more than selling it onesies, twosies, to a customer to check, an individual transient customer to check a path. So that's been number one. Number two is working together with IATA and many different industry bodies, Star Alliance, our partner airlines, is working on regulatory frameworks here so that we can have a substantive amount of SAF actually produced. The last figure I read is this year, even with all the increases to production, it's going to cover, I think, 0.5% of the actual consumption. And so we need regulatory and taxation frameworks that allow for a lot more production to happen, and it needs to happen in such a way that it doesn't have other deleterious effects on things like, for example, the food chain. And that's a place where Canada has a particularly strength because we can grow feedstocks that don't have other negative impacts, water, food, et cetera. And then the last thing is, it's not as impactful, but what are all the other places that we produce emissions or environmental impact that we're able to change? So for example, we're nearly subbed out on all of our ground equipment to electric ground equipment. And you talk about in-flight cutlery and things of that nature. Look, I'm not gonna BS you. Air Canada changing to bamboo cutlery ultimately doesn't make a big difference, but the entire airline industry changing to bamboo cutlery, and then the entire hotel industry and the entire restaurant and takeout and food delivery industry changing, that does make a difference. So we got to start somewhere. Why not here?
Thank you, Mark. All right, we have time for one more question. We had somebody up here on stage before, Kevin Jackson, president of Porter Airlines, who said something to the effect of, it is easier in Canada to compete when you had two other airlines that don't care too much about the passenger experience. Did you catch those comments, and what do you think about that?
Well, I don't think that's exactly what Kevin said, but it was the gist of it, I think, perhaps. Is that okay, Kevin? Yeah. All is fair in love and war. Look, again, we're proud of our brand. We're proud of the products and services that we deliver. I think any industry practitioner in the room has access to market share data, and other metrics that speak for themselves. And we're really focused on how we can be a better airline, how we can better deliver care and class service to our customers, and take care and work with our coworkers, our employees. And that's really where we're focused. And ultimately, we believe that if the network is right, and if we're delivering reliability, if we're delivering a product that adds value, and we're delivering a great frequent flyer program with good service, that our customers will continue to choose to do business with us, and that's certainly what we're seeing.
And great food, right, as well?
Great food is certainly a piece of it, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you so much. Thank you.